Hey guys, welcome to today's video. Today, I'm going to show you how you can build your own system in order to facilitate the document submission in your database and have an automatic approval based on AI and based on your user's name. The main idea of this project was to help someone, for example, check if the users that they have in their community have gone through the course that they were supposed to take. And the idea is every time someone takes a course, then they have to submit the certificate. And so the idea was to double check if the certificate is matching the user and then set up an automatic approval. And I'm going to show you exactly how you can build just that using no-code tool and make it a very simple and efficient way. So with that being said, let me share my screen and let me show you what we're going to do today. So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to show you quickly a database. So I have a user here, right, called Ashley Franklin for here, and we have no certificate here, no approval, nothing. And basically, this is Airtable, and I'm going to use Fillout for a Fillout form here where you will have a link, and this link can be anywhere in your community. For example, when you want people to submit whatever documents that they have. And so I'm going to take an example here. What would happen? So I have this certificate that I just uploaded. Then you're going to ask for people's email in this case. Obviously, based on where your link is, you might be able to add the parameters in the URL. So you don't need this field here to add the email, but just for the sake of this example, I'm adding this extra field and I'm going to write the email address and then I'm going to press submit. So I'm going to press submit, and what's going to happen here is because it's the same email address and the certificate that I've uploaded as the actual correct name, we will have here the certificate that's going to be approved. So in order to trigger a little bit the automation here, I have something that runs every 15 minutes. So I'm going to make it run just right now. And now what's going to happen is you can see right now the certificate has been assigned to the user because we found the user with the same email. And now I'm going to have the AI going through this certificate and tell me if the certificate was approved or not. And so right now we're just going to wait a few seconds. And here we're going to have a version where the AI is going to show us if this is approved or if it's not approved. And then I will edit some parameters to show you what happened when the certificate is not approved. So let's just wait a few seconds. There we go. And now, as you can see, we have the value approved now that has been automatically set up. So I'm going to redo the same example. And this time I'm going to remove. So this one, I'm going to set it up to true. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove that as well. I'm going to change the name, right? I'm going to change the name. So I do have the certificate here. So this is what a certificate looks like, right? So for example, this is just what it looks like. And now what I'm going to do this time is I just changed the name. So I'm going to re-upload the exact same certificate. So let me just copy paste this because we'll need it later. So I'm going to upload the same certificate. I'm going to upload the same address email here, and I'm going to submit it again. So now what's the main difference? So the main difference. Okay, we have to redo it again. There we go. There we go. So now the main difference is in the name. So one on the certificate is written Franklin, but in my database it's just written Frank. And in this case, I set up a rule that says that this should not be validated. Should not be validated because of this reason, because the name has to be a 95% exact match. So what I'm going to do again, I'm going to accelerate here the test for this automation. And when I go back to my database, now I can see that the certificate here has been uploaded. And now I'm just waiting for the AI once again to analyze the certificate, and that will directly update here the approved field in order to tell me if this one has been approved or not. So then that will allow us to know directly. And this one, what we can see right now is I have a decline status this time because the name was not matching. And I've created a different tab here where every time I have, for example, something that's been declined, then I have this news tab that's just going to let me know, hey, by the way, it doesn't meet the 95% name similarity. So you need to perform an action and you need to check. And this that will allow the user to come and check directly what's been uploaded, check the names, and then either leave it on the decline so they can just delete the certificate if it's not good, or they can literally change to a manual approval, and then this will lead to another action afterwards, right? And last but not least, what happens now if I upload a certificate, for example, that doesn't have an email? So let's say right now I just have this email, okay? So if I want to upload a certificate, but this certificate has no email assigned to it. So let's do this. Let's do this. So I'm going to do davey@randopilot.co. So now I'm going to submit. And now what's going to happen is basically there's no other email that will match this. So what's going to happen is I have a certificate junction table here. And what I can see is this email has been added. So right now it says that it's ready, but when I'm going to kick off the automation, I'm going to run it. And now if I go back to the database, I have a not found status here because this one didn't find the right email matching this user in my database. So that will allow me once again to receive a news here that says that, hey, the certificate upload by davey@randopilot.co doesn't match any user. So you need to check it out in order to find what email was supposed to be used in this case and perform like either manual approval or to just delete it. So this is what we are going to cover today. I'm going to show you exactly how you can build the same system and hopefully adapt it as well to your own case. The main idea is the following. When you have already an existing user database and you want to automate the document submission process and letting AI tells you if there is a match, if it's matching the user or not, and then just be notified for a manual approval if needed. That's what we're going to build right now. So before I jump into, my name is Davey. I'm the founder of runautopilot.co, and I build cool system for cool people using no-code tool. And the main idea is to help you automate your entire business and help you run on autopilot. With that being said, let's jump into this presentation. So first of all, why do we need to build this kind of system? So we need, first of all, make.com, Airtable, Fillout form, and OpenAI. So this is what we are going to use in order to make it happen. Then we will have an overview. So the overview is exactly what just happened in the flow that we've just seen. So the first thing is someone will submit a document using Fillout form, and we will perform a research in order to know if these documents should be automatically approved, if this document is in decline, and if it's declined, then should it be manually approved, or do we just remove it, or we leave it on the decline status? So this is basically the flow that we have today. And basically you update the database every time for any of those status. So it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward, but it can definitely help you streamline some of your processes. So now let's talk about the implementation. So what do I have? So in Airtable, first of all, I have a user here, a user database. So this is the database where I have all my users with all their details. And I have also the field I'm interested to check. So for example, here it's a certificate. I also added a status field that will allow me to know if the certificate has been approved or if it hasn't been approved, right? Then I have a certificate junction table. So what's happening with Fillout is often when you submit a form in Airtable, then the Airtable automation don't really trigger immediately. It doesn't recognize the new row created. So you need to adapt the way Airtable will be triggered. And that's why I'm using a junction table, because here I can have a specific status And I can use, as you saw previously, I was running this automation because it runs technically on a 15 minutes basis. So every 15 minutes, I'm going to check it out. In this case, I just wanted to move faster, but having this junction table actually allow me to add a specific status and check every 15 minutes if the status, in this case, the ready status is there. And then that will run automatically the automation every time you find the ready status and will therefore populate directly the other database when you find the user. So this is what's happened here. And basically this junction table is just used in order to collect the documents that I need from the user directly. So it doesn't directly link to my Airtable database, but so it doesn't directly link to my Airtable user database, but to this junction table where only the certificates will be stored in this field. So this particular form has been created based on this Airtable database, so the junction table, and I've selected the different fields that were available. So the first one was upload the certificate, which I made mandatory. And the second one was to use the email. And I use this field purposely because if, let's say, you have this form in a community, you can't really identify people's email until they submit the certificate, right? But if, let's say, you have something like a platform that you're using where where all your users are already authenticated, then you can just add this parameter in the URL. And in this case, you will be able to remove this field because whenever you submit it, you will be able here to know directly who has submitted it and then to update the record directly. So you might even be able to do this entire process without using the junction table if it's the way you want to do it. In my case, I leave it with the email because I first wanted to check that the user does exist because sometimes people will use a different email than the one that they sign up with. And if there's an issue, then I need a manual approval for this. So with that being said, basically this form is linked to this table, and every time I upload the certificate, I have the certificate and I have a default status. So here you have a default status, which is ready. And when you have ready, then you can run this automation here. So this automation, the trigger is based on time. So every 15 minutes it will run. And the first thing that we have is a find record. So the find record action will allow us to find all the records every 15 minutes where the status is ready. And so this will allow us to perform this research. And I have limited the number of records that will be returned by one because I want just one by one at the time. I will be able to do this with the list as well. In this case, I just to make it simpler, I just selected one, which means that every 15 minutes, it will retrieve all the first new record that he has found that has the status ready. And so therefore you can also give your user a feeling that actually the certificate are being removed because only 4 will be reviewed every hours. So that can also increase the trust that they have in your platform, for example. And then I'm going to have a run script. So the script is pretty simple. The script is just literally sending the record to the webhook. So what I have here is like, I have a record ID that I've defined here in terms of variable, and this record ID will be linked to the record that I retrieved just before, and then I will send this directly to the webhook. So let me show you. Here, when I find a record, so I'm going to go here actually, and here I'm able to find the records and select the Airtable record ID because I know I retrieve only one, and that's what I want to send in my make scenario. So in make, when I go to certificate here, I have this very specific scenario that will help me to retrieve the details that I have from the webhook. So let me take this one that's just run. So here what I can see, I have the record ID, and that's all I need. In order to save time, I'm just using make to retrieve all the records that I need directly from the module. So I added an iterator in the case that I have more than one, because if you remember well, I've selected one record, but I can put 10. And so the iterator will allow me to go through each of them and perform this entire scenario. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is get a record. So here I'm going to retrieve based on the record ID that I had in the webhook, I'm going to retrieve the actual record that I need to look for. So in this case, I find the record based on the email. And if you remember well, the email was wrong. So here, for example, when I get the record, I'm using the record ID that I have here. And if nothing has been found, so in make.com, basically, I'm sending the record ID, right? So the record ID is received through the webhook. And because it can be a list, can be more than one, then I'm using an iterator in order to go through each of them. So you can just increase the limit in what we've done here. So for example, in the final record, I can set up a maximum record limit of 10, and that won't impact whatever I've done here because I'm using an iterator in order to go through each of them. Then I'm going to get the record. So the first thing that I want to do is get the record from the Junction table. So here I want to retrieve the email, the certificate, and the status. So that's what I'm doing here. Then I'm going to search a record. And here what I'm going to do is actually search in the user database record, which record has the same email as the one that I just retrieved from the Junction table. And so that's how we've been able to know that actually this submission didn't have an email matching in the user table. And I've limited the result to 1 because I only want to get and retrieve the first record that I'm going to find, right? Then I have 2 options. 1, the record exists, and 2, the record doesn't exist. So if the record exists, we're just going to filter and make sure that the ID that we retrieve here exists. So if there's an ID, which means that he has found a record with the same email, what we're going to do is update the record. So we're going straight to the user database. Because we have the record ID, we are able to update the file URL directly with the one from the record that we retrieved, so from the Junction table. And we are, and that's it. Basically, we just update this record. And then we're going to update another record, which is in the Junction table. We're going to change the status by uploaded. So that means that we found a record and we have uploaded a certificate with the right user. Here, what we're going to do if the record doesn't exist, so that means if there's no ID, in this case, we will update the record. So in the Junction table, and we will change the status by not found, right? And then we will create a record, and this record is in the news table that will allow me to be informed that actually one of the record didn't have any matching emails. You can then replace this module by an email, by WhatsApp notification, by anything else that will let you know that something didn't work out. And so basically here, this is the different status that I have. So ready, uploaded, or not found. And when it's not found, this is the status that's going to be defined. And by default, you always have the ready status, which is going to be the signal to search for this record, right? So once this is done, what's happening? So once this is done, we then in Airtable have a different trigger when the certificate has been uploaded. So here, for example, when the certificate has been uploaded, so let me just duplicate this. Let's cover this specific part. When I'm in my user database, if I add a new user, for example, here, you can see that certificate uploaded is by default is on false, right? Yet in my command, when a new certificate has been added, in this database, and once the automation runs, the first thing that it does is to upload the certificate with the right user when he found it. So it's going to upload the certificate here directly because the email was matching. And the second thing that it's going to do is to upload the status to true. And when the status becomes true, this is what I'm using in order to trigger the next automation here. So when you look at this automation here, we have the user database here. And when the status is true, this is when you have to run this script. And this script, what is this script? This script is basically a webhook. So we send a record ID. So it's the same thing here as the record ID that we will send directly to the make scenario. So a different make scenario, and that's what we're going to do. So the main idea is to perform all those tasks outside of Airtable because there's API limitation, because it can take a bit longer, and it's so much faster to actually do it in make.com because then I can literally start working with this. And so the next flow that is starting afterwards is this one. So when the status, the certificate has been uploaded, the status is on true. Here I receive a webhook. The first thing that I'm going to do is to retrieve the record ID of this particular user. So in order to get the file, then I'm going to directly download the file that I received. So I'm getting the URL from Airtable, download the file, and then I'm going to upload the file in ChatGPT. So that's what I'm going to do here. And what I do basically with this particular module is uploading a file to a vector store. So in OpenAI, you can create a vector store, and then you are able with this module, so the upload file, you are able to directly upload your file for your assistant, which will allow us to add it to the vector store and then be able to make requests about this particular file, right? So that's what we do here. So you choose the vector store, so the vector store ID here, certificate, and the file ID. And you get the file ID because the file has been sent through this module before that will allow us to retrieve the ID. So that's how we do it. And then you can message the assistant. So if we take OpenAI, for example, so I have an assistant that has been created, and this assistant here has already a job, which is to confirm that the certificate are part of a specific organization, and then check if the document match the name verification, right? And that actually should be 100% identical. And I put all the different guidelines that I had in order for this assistant to be able to perform this task. And this assistant basically has his own store. So he has his own vector store, which allow him to be able to perform this research. And that's why I have here at this very part here. So add the file to the vector store. We get the file from the previous module. And then we will message this assistant. So we're not messaging just ChatGPT, generally speaking. We just message this assistant that we configure and we set up in order to be able to work against the file that we provided. And then based on the content of the file ID, all right, confirm if this certificate belongs to, and then we retrieve, remember, we retrieve the name of the user. And you need to be 100% sure about it. If so, return true. If not, return false in plain text. That's all what we need, a true and false. And then we have two options. If this AI assistant returns us false, then here we know that it's going to be declined. So the first thing that we do is we create a news to say, hey, we checked the certificate and actually is not meeting the, I'm going to say the 100% name similarity. And then we update the record by changing the status to actually decline. Now, if it's true, in this case, if it's true, and then here we use as well the result of the OpenAI module, then we will create a record and say that the certificate has been approved and no action has been required. So we let also the user know that this matching process has been made and everything is as expected. And then we should have a status that says it's automatically approved here. And then we can add different modules. So if it's a community, for example, then you can add member to a different space. You can send a message. Then whatever you want to perform after that is really up to you. But that's the way it has been performed. And the last part that is very important is what happened when the file has been declined. So here, for example, we will have a file that has been decline, and when you check, you just realize, oh, you know what? Actually, that is the same name. Or it's just like they use the short version of their name, but the certificate is actually valid. Then you can directly here change the status to manually, because you'll be able to perform the task after you receive the notification. And here, what's going to happen is we will have another webhook. So this webhook is basically when the certificate has been approved manually. So we keep the exact same process here. So if approved is manually, right, that's the condition, then I'm sending a webhook with the record ID. And this is the scenario that I have here, where here I'm going to receive the message that says, hey, here's the record ID. It's been approved. And then I can add a member to a space group or send a message. So I have more actually than the record ID. I have the email directly here. And because I'm using Circle after for the rest of the flow, then I can match the user with the email that I received from the manual approving system. So here, for example, if you go here on the record ID that I have set up, there's a name and there's an email that have been set up. And this is coming from this previous step, the trigger when the record is updated. Then we retrieve the email from it, we retrieve the name, and we send all those details through the webhook, and we use the email to perform an action in Circle, for example. So this is the way it works. So I hope that's clear. I just cover it briefly so you have an overview about how you can build that yourself as well. Now, what's the budget for something like this? So right now, the budget is actually you be able to perform this task on the free plan. Now, with Make Scenario, you have up to 1,000 operations and up to 2 scenarios. So you can do it in Make for free if you remove, for example, the manual approval process, and if you just do it yourself, right? So in this case, you can stay on the free plan. Otherwise, you will have to move on the pay plan for Fillout, for Airtable, sorry. So you can stay on the free plan for this one. You will have enough with the simple automation setup. For Fillout, you can also stay on the free plan because it's actually a simple form and you don't need much more personalization. Now, if you want to have a better form, obviously you will have to pay for the Fillout first plan. And then for OpenAI, that you can literally just top up your account. And when you top up your account, so this is the moment where when you top up your account, then you literally can use only $20, for example, for an entire year, and you'll be able to perform it at a very large level with a lot of people. So it's actually a setup that you can do for free if you do it the right way. And this is like pretty useful, especially when you have people that wants to upload documents and you just want to set up an automatic checkup. So you don't have to do this yourself. So what are the takeaways? So as you saw, this is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And this is something that can literally save you hours for a process that can be literally automated. You do not have to overcomplicate it. You can use directly OpenAI in order to perform all those tasks. And I think it's very important to see the different modules that there is in make.com in order to do so. So first of all, you upload the file, then you send the file to the vector store. And then from the vector store, because you assign the vector store to an AI assistant, then you will just query your AI assistant about the file that you just sent to him. And so that's the way you'll be able to perform this task at scale and be able to automate part of your process. So I hope that was clear enough. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment. If you have a use case for this scenario as well, let me know. My name is Davey. I'm the founder of FrontAutoPilot.co. And if I can help you, feel free to reach out. With that being said, have a great day. Bye.